Yashodanandana Brajanarandana Yamunadira Vanatari Yamunadira Vanatari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajanarandana Yashodanandana Brajanarandana Yamunadira Vanatari Yamunadira Vanatari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajanarandana Yashodanandana Brajanarandana Yamunadira Vanatari Yamunadira Vanatari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe Jaya Radha Kunja Bihari Radha Kunja Bihari Radhe Jaya Radha Rashmi Hari Radha Rashmi Hari Radhe Jaya Radha Giridhari Radha Giridhari Radhe ऐसी भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय विष्णुपाद परमहंस गुरुचार्य स्वतः सत्य शिष्य भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती ठाकुर श्रील प्रभुपाद की अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की श्री रूप श्री सनातन भक्त रघुनाथ श्री जीव गोपाल भट्ट रस रघुनाथ गोसाई प्रभु की प्रेम से गौ श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवजरी गौर भक्त वृंद की श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गो गोपा गोपी गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंद राधा कुंद गिरि गोवर्धन की वृंदावन धाम की मथुरा धाम की मायापुर नवद्वीप धाम की जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की तुलसी महारानी भक्ति देवी की गंगे यमुना देवी की हरि नाम संकीर्तन यज्ञ की श्री श्री गौनिताय की श्री श्री कृष्ण बलराम की श्री श्री राधा श्याम सुंदर की गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल समवेत भक्त वृंद की all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Reading from the Bhagavad Gita as it is. Ninth chapter. Text number 13. mahātmānas tu mam pārtha daivīṁ prakṛtim āśritāḥ bhajanty ananya-manaso jñātvā bhūtādim avyayam mahātmānas tu mam pārtha daivīṁ prakṛtim āśritāḥ bhajanty ananya-manaso jñātvā bhūtādim avyayam mahātmānas tu mam pārtha daivīṁ prakṛtim āśritāḥ bhajanty ananya-manaso jñātvā bhūtādim avyayam mahātmānastu mam pārtha daivīṁ prakṛtim āśritāḥ bhajanty ananya-manaso jñātvā bhūtādim avyayam mahātmānastu mam pārtha daivīṁ prakṛtim āśritāḥ bhajanty ananya-manaso jñātvā bhūtādim avyayam mahātmānastu mam pārtha daivīṁ prakṛtim āśritāḥ bhajanty ananya-manaso jñātvā bhūtādim avyayam. Mataji's? mahātmānastu mam pārtha daivīṁ prakṛtim āśritāḥ bhajanty ananya-manaso jñātvā bhūtādim avyayam mahātmānastu mam pārtha daivīṁ prakṛtim āśritāḥ bhajanty ananya-manaso jñātvā bhūtādim avyayam mahātmānastu mam pārtha daivīṁ prakṛtim āśritāḥ bhajanty ananya-manaso jñātvā bhūtādim avyayam mahā-ātmānaḥ. The great souls to but mam unto me Pṛthā, O son of Pṛthā, daivīm divine prakṛtim nature āśritāḥ having taken shelter of bhajanti render service ananya-manasaḥ without deviation of the mind jñātvā knowing bhūta of creation ādim the origin avyayam inexhaustible. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki! Translation. O son of Pṛthā, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. Purport. In this verse, the description of the Mahātmā is clearly given. The first sign of the Mahātmā is that he is already situated in the divine nature. He is not under the control of material nature. And how is this effected? That is explained in the 7th chapter. One who surrenders unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, at once becomes freed from the control of material nature. That is the qualification. One can become free from the control of material nature as soon as he surrenders his soul to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the preliminary formula. Being marginal potency, as soon as a living entity is freed from the control of material nature, is put under the guidance of the spiritual nature. The guidance of the spiritual nature is called daivīṁ prakṛtim, divine nature. So when one is promoted in that way, by surrendering to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one attains to the stage of great soul, mahātmā. The Mahātmā does not divert his attention to anything outside Krishna, because he knows perfectly well that Krishna is the original Supreme Person, the cause of all causes. There is no doubt about it. Such a Mahātmā of great soul develops through association with other Mahātmās, pure devotees. Pure devotees are not even attracted by Krishna's other features, such as the four-armed mahā-viṣṇu. They are simply attracted by the two-armed form of Krishna. They are not attracted to other features of Krishna, nor are they concerned with any form of a demigod or of a human being. They meditate only upon Krishna, in Krishna consciousness. They are always engaged in the unswerving service of the Lord, in Krishna consciousness. Om ajnana timirandasya jnananjana salakaya chaksuran militam yanam tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Sayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Sapadantikam Bandeham Sri Guru Sri Yutapada Kamalan Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Sri Vishakan Vidamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Ganta Radha Kanta Namastute Tatta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshari Vrijabhano Sude Devi Pranamami Hare Priye Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Jadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. mahātmānas tamam pārtha daivīṁ prakṛtim āśritāḥ bhajanty ananya-manaso jñātvā bhūtādim avyayam. Also of Pṛthā, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. Krishna is giving this wonderful knowledge, here explained as the most confidential knowledge, to his devotee Arjuna. Here in this verse is explaining about Mahatmas, great souls. The great souls, as explained here, are under the protection of the internal potency. Krishna is the source of everything, of all the personalities of Godhead, of all the energies. Purusha Shakti Viviraya Suyate. There are many Shaktis are there, energies of the Lord. Is the source of the spiritual world, is the source of the material world. And the living entities are part and parcels of Krishna. Yamnāśritāḥ. They have the same qualities as Krishna. Satchid Ananda Vigraha. Krishna is Parameshwara, the Supreme Lord. His body is eternal, full of bliss and knowledge. The living entities, as part and parcels of Krishna, they have the same nature, spiritual nature. The jivas, the spirit souls, mahā-viṣṇu jiva loke jiva bhūta sanatana, they're also eternal. They are cognizant, knowledgeable, and they are also blissful, anandamaya payasat, by nature. Vigraha, there is a form there, a spiritual form. It is explained also in the scriptures that the Supreme Lord is always transcendental to this material world. And even the eternal potency is transcendental to this material world. But the living entities, there are two kinds basically. Those who are eternally perfect, known as nitya-siddha. They are always engaged in the service of the Lord. The others, they are known as nitya-baddha, conditioned since time immemorial. By nature, they are also eternal servants of Krishna, but they are not engaged in the service of the Lord. They are conditioned. When this material world is manifested, sometimes it is manifested, not always, by the will of the Lord. Then the conditioned souls, they come to this material world. And by the mercy of the Lord, who is Himself coming to this world, to give this transcendental knowledge, to help the conditioned souls to awaken their spiritual consciousness. So the Lord Himself is coming for the purpose, and it is the purpose ultimately of the creation. And then He's also sending His representatives, wherever liberated. And they come for the same purpose of helping the conditioned souls to awaken their transcendental consciousness, so they may then realize their spiritual nature, and they may then engage in the transcendental loving service of Krishna, the Supreme Lord. So the great souls, there may be of two categories. One, those who are nitya-siddha, who are ever perfect, ever liberated, who come to this world to help the conditioned souls. They're certainly always mahātmānas. And then those souls who are from the category of nitya-baddha, but by coming in the association, as Prabhupada has pointed out in the Purport, that the Mahātmās a Mahātmā or great soul develops through association with other Mahātmās, pure devotees. So when one is interested in spiritual life and is trying to make advancement, then in the association of the great souls, those who are already liberated, then they can also become liberated. And then they are also considered to be Mahātmās, or great souls. In the Śrīmad Bhagavatam, in the 5th canto, Rishabhdev, an incarnation avatar of the Supreme Lord, he has explained about the Mahātmās, that they are constantly engaged in spiritual activities. And there specifically also it is mentioned about two kinds of Mahātmās. Those who worship the Supreme Lord in his personal feature, and even those who meditate on the impersonal aspect of the Absolute Truth. But we should understand that they are inferior. But still they are accepted as great souls because they are engaged in trying to realize their spiritual nature as being different from this material body. Different from the gross and subtle body. And when one attains the human form of life, so one has the opportunity to understand the difference between the soul and the material body. Those who are fortunate to come into the association of the Mahātmās, they can make advancement. But some, they're not so fortunate, and they will come into the association of other Mahātmās who have not a complete understanding, who are in the pursuit of realizing the impersonal aspect of the Absolute Truth, but still they may be accepted as Mahātmās because they are not engaged in material activities, but they are engaged in the spiritual pursuit. They're doing some austerity, and they're reading the scriptures. They're trying to meditate and be situated on the spiritual platform, Atma-tattva, on the platform of the soul. So in this way, controlling the mind and the senses as much as possible. But a true Mahātmā is the one who is approaching the Supreme Lord and serving the Supreme Lord. So those who are liberated, so they're the true Mahātmās, and then those who are trying to then also become liberated by taking shelter of the liberated souls, so they are also accepted as Mahātmās truly, and they will also become liberated. And they are under the protection, as explained here, of the divine energy. As explained, many energies are there. So, but basically, again, there are also two energies are there, the internal energy and the external energy. Antaranga Shakti and Bahyaranga Shakti. Antaranga Shakti, the internal potency, is there. The divine potency, also known as Yoga Maya, or Swarup Shakti, Krishna's own potency. And then there is Bahyaranga potency, also known as Mahamaya, the external energy of the Lord. So the liberated souls, they're always under the protection of the divine nature. Whereas everybody else in this material world is under the protection of the external energy. Those who understand the necessity of taking up spiritual activities by taking shelter of the Lord, by taking shelter of the representative of the Lord, engaging in spiritual activities, then slowly but surely they can come under the protection of the divine energy. But in the beginning stage, So sometimes the sadhaka, the practicing devotee, is under the influence of the internal energy, and then again is under the influence of the external energy also, because he's not yet purified in consciousness, because he's not yet strong in his determination, he's not experienced. So therefore he's not able to be always situated under the protection of the divine nature. So it is a matter of constant practice. It is a matter of surrendering to Guru, Gauranga and Krishna. It is a matter of praying for help, being in a good association, being in a good environment. Then it is possible to remain free from the influence of the external energy, the modes of material nature. Three modes of material nature are there: sattva gun, rajagun and tamagun. So in order to become transcendently situated, one should try to first of all be in the mode of goodness. And one should try not to be under the influence of the lower modes of material nature, mode of passion and ignorance. That is important. And so one has to understand and try to see through the eyes of the scriptures, by hearing from the saintly devotees, what are the symptoms of the mode of goodness. That is explained also in the Bhagavad Gita by Krishna himself, and in other various transcendental Vedic Vaishnava literatures it is explained. For example, the place where one is living. For example, living in a natural environment. For example, on a farm or on the land where the trees are there and the river may be nearby. So that is in the mode of goodness. Living in the city, that is the mode of passion and ignorance. For example, even in the city you may see some places, those who have more money, they will have a nice building, they will have their own house, maybe even they may have a little garden. But those who don't have so much money and they are struggling in every way, so they may be living in a shabby place, or even the slums are there in the cities. So that is a mode of ignorance is there, because they are not elevated in consciousness and their occupation is also as such. So therefore they are in the mode of ignorance, and it is difficult for them to engage in spiritual activities. Whereas if one has some facility, a good place to stay, some enough money, so he can eat nicely and live comfortably, it is a little easier to practice spiritual activities. If one is in the mode of goodness, when the environment is pure, is beautiful, in accordance with nature, then it is more easy. In nature, more easily we can see the Supreme Lord, or see that everything is a manifestation of the Supreme Lord. Then it is easier. At the same time, if one is taking shelter of the spiritual master, the representative of the Lord, if one is chanting, especially in the age of Kali, the holy names, the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Then it may be a little more easy it may be also possible to transcend the modes of material nature, even though the environment may not be so conducive. But it is very helpful, and one should try to make sure that the environment is in a mode of goodness. That is helpful. Similarly, in terms of the occupation, so those who engage in for example, according to Vana ashram, for Vanas and for ashramas are there, social orders, Vanas. So those who engage in Brahminical activities, who are worshipping the deities, doing yagyas, studying the scriptures and teaching, these are activities in the mode of goodness. And that is very helpful for making advancement in spiritual life. There the Supreme Lord is in the center. If one is an administrator or one is a soldier, then it is already a little more difficult. So similarly, when the Vaishyas are there, of course, even there it is possible if Krishna is in the center to make advancement. But it is more easy if one has Brahminical tendencies and one is engaged in Brahminical activities. Even in regards, for example, for eating, and that is also explained in the scriptures, in the Bhagavad Gita. Of course, there specifically it is mentioned that whatever we eat, first of all, we should offer to Krishna. But even there it is mentioned what we should offer to Krishna. So fruits, vegetables, milk products, and grains. So that is offered to Krishna. And it is also mentioned what Krishna likes. And so when we offer this with a proper consciousness, then Krishna will accept, and then we may accept that prasad, the mercy of the Lord. For example, even there, so some are very fond, some people of eating so many spices, especially chili, red chili or green chili. But that is actually a mode of passion. So if it is too spicy, that will not be conducive for having the proper consciousness, or using too much. Of course, ghee can be used, but that should also be moderate. So then even then the cooking also has to be the mode of goodness. So what is offered has to be as described in the scriptures. And tamasic food is there, that which is rajasic, and of course meat and non-vegetarian things, that is in the mode of ignorance. And that is completely detrimental. So one has to see that one's place, one's association, one's activities should be as much as possible in the mode of goodness, and then we can transcend the mode of goodness also and be situated on the transcendental plane, be under the protection of the internal potency. So it is an art that one has to practice, and one has to analyze one's life and then try to see that one can slowly but surely advance. But it takes a lot of determination and enthusiasm, and one has to be patient also in order to make rapid advancement. And one has to be in the association of those who are highly advanced, the mahātmās. Then it is easier. And one has to give up unwanted association. Those who are very materialistic, those who are actually offensive, so they should be given up their association. Otherwise one cannot advance in spiritual life. Bhajanty ananya-manaso, bhajanti, rendering service, bhajan, performing devotional service. Ananya-manaso, that has to be done without deviation of the mind. Ananya means practically all the time one has to be engaged in bhajan, in worship of the Lord, in service of the Lord, by chanting the holy names, by worshipping the deities, by hearing about the Supreme Lord and His wonderful qualities, His activities, His pastimes. Constantly one has to hear about Krishna or speak about Krishna, and then try to remember Krishna without deviation. One has to practice. In the Nectar of Devotion, Srila Prabhupada has explained that Krishna consciousness is a cultivation. One has to cultivate Krishna consciousness. As Prabhupada has also mentioned here, that the devotees, they are Trying to be always engaged in spiritual activities. So that goes in terms of the consciousness, tan, man, vacha. So with one's consciousness, with one's mind, one has to try to always think about Krishna. And then by speech, one has to chant holy names, one has to glorify Krishna. And with the body, all the senses, one has to, with the eyes, they have to be engaged in, of course, in taking darshan of the Lord. That is very important. Because with our, in a conditioned state, the spiritual vision is not there. Spiritual eyes are not there. We cannot see Krishna in the beginning stage of devotional life. Therefore the acharyas, and by his own sweet will, Krishna is manifested in the Acha Vigraha. So we can see Krishna, we can serve Krishna. So therefore it is important to every day take darshan in the temple or at home, have deities. So we can see Krishna, we can serve Krishna. And then the ears are there, we have to hear about Krishna. The tongue, we have to speak about Krishna. We have to engage all the other senses also. Sense of touch, doing artik for the Lord, cleaning the temple, cooking for the Lord, walking to the temple or to the holy places where Krishna performed his pastimes. So in this way, so the consciousness becomes purified when Krishna is in the center. So the devotees are constantly engaged in spiritual activities, in devotional service, and here also it is explained, jñātvā. Jñātvā, knowing Krishna to be the origin of everything, to be inexhaustible, to be the vasta, the real thing, is the real object, the vasta, that is Krishna. Pranana, the Lord of our life, Ishtadev. Aradhyadev. So we have to take shelter of Krishna. Why? Because it's the Supreme Lord. Why? Because actually we have a relationship with Him. Eternal relationship, and that is the real Vastav Jivan, the real life is in relation with Krishna. Spiritual life. Material life is temporary. Material relationships are temporary. So we have to elevate ourselves to the transcendental plane, beyond this material world, engaging in the service of Krishna. And then slowly but surely we can realize our spiritual nature. Also Prabhupada is making a point here in the purport, which is important for us, that so that regards to the devotees in the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. Pure devotees are not even attracted by Krishna's other features, such as the four-armed mahā-viṣṇu. They are simply attracted by the two-armed form of Krishna. So there are many personalities of Godhead, Vishnu, Narayan, and so on, even Ramchandra. But the original Supreme Personality of Godhead is Krishna, Yashodanandan, Gopinath, and is most beautiful, and is the Lord of the life of the devotees in the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. So we are most fortunate. By the will of the Lord, we are very nicely situated in the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. And then also Prabhupada is explaining what to speak of being attracted to any demigod or any other human being. Like so many people still in Bharatvarsha, they are attracted to Lord Shiva, to Durga Devi, Indra, Lord Brahma maybe, or even to some human being. They have some hero of this material world, some film star, some cricket star, some football star or whatever. But these are material heroes, and their fame is very temporary, and their heroic nature is totally insignificant. But the real hero, the only hero is actually Krishna, especially Krishna in Braj. And he's most beautiful. He's possessing all wonderful qualities to the highest limit. So therefore the intelligent persons, they will surrender to Krishna. Knowing his supreme position, knowing his wonderful qualities, knowing his wonderful pastimes, knowing his wonderful exchange with his wonderful devotees. So therefore, the intelligent devotee will always try to be engaged in spiritual activities, especially as mentioned here also, in the association of other pure devotees. Because as sadhakas practicing devotee alone, it is very difficult to advance in spiritual life. But one has to be in good association, especially those who are highly advanced, especially those who are Vedantavid, who know the conclusion of the Vedas, Siddhantavid, they know the conclusion of the Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy, what is the goal of life. Shastravid, so they have knowledge of the Vedic literatures, the Vaishnava literatures. Rasa Tattvavid, and specifically they will know how to engage in the transcendental loving service, in Braj Bhav, following the eternal associates of Krishna in Braj. So we should associate with those devotees who are more advanced, and there in their association, then we will get this transcendental knowledge. We will get inspiration to serve Krishna with the proper consciousness, with the proper mood. We will understand what Krishna likes, what is favorable, anukul, Krishna Nushirinam, as Krishna likes. We should serve Krishna for his satisfaction. And then we can also be satisfied. So, any questions? Yes.
Thank you. Very nice episode. I'm a little bit confused. What are the symptoms if one mahātmā, the great soul, lives under the internal potencies or under the protection of divine nature? So, what are the symptoms that one is under the internal potencies of God and under the protection of divine nature?
What are the symptoms? The symptoms of a devotee who is under the internal potency, he is always engaged in spiritual activities. He is always serving Krishna. He is glorifying Krishna. Also you will see he is always blissful, because that is the transcendental nature. Anandamaya vyasat. So by nature, the soul is blissful. And Satchidananda Vigraha. So the devotee who is under the internal potency is blissful. Is blissfully engaged in Krishna's service. He has a full faith in Krishna. Dhriyar Vishwas is completely fixed and always depending on Krishna. He's not depending on anything of this material world, or of any person of this material world. He's depending on Krishna.
That is under devotional, divine nature. That is also means divine nature.
Yes, of course. Yes.
Internal
Yes.
potency and divine nature is the same thing.
Yeah, internal potency and divine nature, that is the same thing. For example, another quality of a great devotee, of course, first of all, the Krishnaika Sharanam, is always surrendered to Krishna with body, with the consciousness and the speech. Another symptom of one who is highly advanced is pakva dainatva, ripe humility. He doesn't think, or he doesn't say, I am a great devotee. He will think I am very insignificant. And he will see everyone is a devotee of Krishna. And I'm not really devotee, I'm just trying to serve Krishna, but I'm not able to. So he's realizing his infinitesimal position. The Atma, how big is the Atma? Very insignificant. The body may be big, but the Atma is just inside the body, very tiny. So he's situated on that plane of the Atma. He sees that he's different from this body. He sees he's insignificant. So he's naturally humble. And his humility is ripe. Means he's never proud. He's always understanding, I'm the very insignificant servant of Krishna. I'm not even the servant of Krishna, I'm the servant of the servant of Krishna. I'm the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna. That is my position. So he's naturally very humble. So he's always engaged in spiritual activities. Yes. Okay? Hare Krishna. Yes. Yeah.
Hello. What is the practical meaning of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare?
What is the meaning?
Practical meaning.
The meaning of the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So that mantra is known as Maha Mantra, great mantra. What is the meaning of mantra? Mantra means that is a divine verse which is helping one to control the mind, to free the mind from being in this material world. Mantra, free the mind, because the mind is thinking about material things. But we are concentrating on the Supreme Lord. With the help of the mantra, then we can become free. The mind can become free from being absorbed in the material world by chanting Hare Krishna. But for that we have to understand what is the meaning of the mantra. What is the meaning of the mantra? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So Krishna refers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna means the all-attractive. Kris means to attract. Na means Ananda. So Krishna is most beautiful. He is the Supreme Person and he is most beautiful. And is the source of all Anand, bliss. And then Hare, that refers to the internal potency. Hara, Srimati Radharani. Srimati Radharani, she is the greatest devotee of Krishna. She is serving Krishna, giving pleasure to Krishna. She is most expert. So by chanting Hare Krishna, we are remembering Radha Krishna. We are approaching Radharani, please engage me in the service of Krishna. So Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Ram, that also refers to Krishna, who is the source of all bliss, and also who is engaged in performing pastimes with Srimati Radharani and the gopis. Vaidakti Sarvasvam, Vaidakti Sarvasvam, Murti Lilati Daivatam, Radhika Ramyam Nityam Rame Ityavidiyate. The meaning of Rama is, so that is, Krishna is performing very wonderful pastimes, who is the essence of all transcendental, wonderful pastimes. And then Radhika Ramyam Nityam, who is always in Braj performing his wonderful pastimes together with Srimati Radharani. Radhika Raman. So that is, Ram refers to Krishna performing pastimes with the gopis, especially Srimati Radharani. Of course there may be other meanings according to different devotees, but in our sampradaya this is the highest meaning. So that mantra is also known as Yugal mantra. Yugal means a pair. Yugal refers to Radha and Krishna. So when we chant the Maha mantra, we remember Radha and Krishna, or we try to remember. But in the beginning, it is not possible to always remember Krishna or Radha Krishna. So therefore we have to follow the process. First you have to take shelter of the spiritual master. In the beginning we may remember Guru also, the spiritual master, by chanting the holy name. Then we pray to him so that we can fix our mind on the chanting of the holy names by speaking nicely and hearing nicely and not thinking about anything material, but praying to the spiritual master and then praying to Mahaprabhu, who has introduced the Yuga Dharma, the chanting of the holy names, and then we try to remember Radha Krishna. And how we can remember? By first of all seeing the deities, then serving the deities, hearing about Radha and Krishna. Then we can chant nicely. So the Maha-mantra is also known as the great chants for deliverance, to become delivered, to become free from this material world. So therefore we chant the Maha-mantra. And then by chanting the Maha-mantra, so we advance in spiritual life, and then also in material existence we'll be always happy. Whatever is needed we will get by the mercy of the Lord. So ananya-manaso tamam yajanapaya pasate tesham nitya-viyuktanam yogakshemam vahāmyaham. So if one is doing just as mentioned here, bhajanty ananya-manaso. So constantly, if one is constantly doing bhajan of Krishna, or ananya-manaso tamam, always remembering Krishna, then one is under the divine potency, and then also Krishna will help. Whatever we need, just like the father and mother. The child does not have to ask the father or mother, I need this, I need that. The parents, they will give food, they have a place to stay, they will put the child in the school, they will help him in every way. Of course, sometimes the child wants some toys, and the parents may give also, they can play a little bit. But then he will try to explain to the child that what is important in life, that we have to go to school and we have to grow up nicely and become a nice person. And then especially we have to engage in spiritual activities. So Krishna is more than a father and mother, because the father and mother, they can only to some extent help. But ultimately, the real help that will come from Krishna, the Supreme Lord. He will help us if we try to serve Him, if we surrender to Him, if we try to remember Him, and always try to serve Him. So Krishna is there to help us. So by chanting the holy names, so that is an expression of our surrender to Krishna, and that is an expression of our wanting to love Krishna. So therefore we chant the holy names. We chant the Maha-mantra. Okay? Fine? Okay. Hare Krishna. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki, Srila Prabhupada ki.
His Grace Mukunda.